call me Master and Lord, and you say, well, so I am. When you first got saved, you came into this thing as a servant and him the master. That's all you knew. You may have been religious before, but once you met him, that makes everything different. Now you call him Master and Lord. Why? Because he said that's what I am. And as you walk with him and start learning of him, if you look at John chapter 15, you begin to learn him as a friend. He said, John chapter 15, verse 15, henceforth I call you not servants. They've been serving him up to this time. In John 15, he says, for the servant knoweth not what his Lord doeth. And when you think about that statement about the servant not knowing what his Lord doeth, how many loaves of fish have you? Now, you, Peter, James, and John, you wonder, why is he asking a little more than that? You don't know what he's fixing to do. You have no idea, right? Forgot my outfit up here. Hold on. Wardrobe malfunction for a second there. There we go. So you didn't know really a whole lot about that if you was Peter, James, and John and those fellas. And when he walks into the room with the daughter that lay dead, he said, she's not dead, she's just asleep. Do you know what he did to everybody there that laughed at him? He put them right out the door. Guess who he let stay? The very guys that didn't know what he's fixing to do. When they sat over there in John chapter 11, they said, Lazarus is sick. He said, okay, and he said, I am. 4 days later, he said, let's go over there. Well, he's dead, Lord. He's just asleep. I'll take care of it. You start learning more, but they don't know what he's going to do. But now from here on out, he said, the servant knoweth his Lord doeth. He says, that same part, but I have called you friends. For all things that I've heard of my Father, I have made known unto you. What did he tell them after he rose from the dead? Go wait for me hence. I ascend into heaven, so forth. He told them every step. When he tells them over there about the thing about have yet things say yet, that's his verification of the New Testament. By verbal word, he's going to give it to them. He ain't through with them, but he's telling them what he's going to do. Remember, he wasn't telling them what he's going to do in John 13:13, but in John 15:15, he is. So you got that progressive friendship thing coming there, and then the last part of it, your brethren in John chapter 20 and verse 17, he says this, at the bottom of the page there, John chapter 20, verse 17, Jesus said unto her, he says, touch me not, for I'm not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren. See, now they're brethren. So they're brethren because of what? He's risen from the grave. They're closer than friends, they're brethren. He says, and saying to them, I ascend to my Father and your Father. That's how they're brethren, same Father, and to my God and your God. So we see that God takes somebody and starts with them on one place there as master and servant. Then he comes closer. He says, I've called you friends. And then he says, we're brethren. Now, if you go back to John chapter 18, leading into this chapter, what we've got to see so far has been an incredible story with Sarah and Abraham. And if you remember the last time it was in Genesis chapter 17, God changed their names from to Abraham to Sarah, because those names mean different things. And now God's got him, and he's trying to get across to Abraham a thing. Genesis chapter 12, and what was that? I will make of thee a great nation. Thy seed shall be as thy seed. So Sarah, who did not believe God in Genesis chapter 12, did not believe him in Genesis chapter 16. So she tries to help God out by, giving Abraham a place to put that seed so it don't go through her because she thinks she's too old. And then in Genesis 17, God said, because he's going to do that thing through her still. She still don't believe it. And they get over in Genesis chapter 18, and what I'm going to preach on tonight is when God shows up to visit. When God shows up to visit. Do y'all like it when I come visit you? I mean, you have to hide the Playboy magazines, run all them wicked friends out, hide the beer in your refrigerator and everything. But imagine this. If I was God showing up to visit, I'd already be there and already know. Isn't that something? You start preaching on hiding beer and this whole crowd gets quiet. I'm going to start making them, what do you call them things when they just show up on you? What is that? Impromptu visits. There we go. That's going to be our new way of doing things from now on. Say, well, my house won't be clean. Honey, God saw it before I did. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. The worst it's going to be is that you won't have no Diet Mountain Dew. That's as bad as it's going to get. Okay? That's as bad as it's going to get. Anyway, just kidding about that. But Genesis chapter 18, we start off with some tremendous news. It says, and the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And here he says this about the pattern. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground and said, what did he say over there? My Lord, if I now have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on. For therefore you come to your servant, Lord, servant. See it? And they said, so do as thou hast said. And Abraham hasted into the tent unto Sarah, and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes unto the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd and fetched a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man, and he hasted to dress it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them, and stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. Now I want to ask you something. Did you see Master and Lord show up right there? Remember the other guy that was involved in Abraham's life, Lot? Pick you a side, Lot. I'll take the green side with all this. You can have the desert there. I wonder if Lot was eating so good down there with them vegans and vegetarians down there like Abraham was over there with the tender calf. You do know that's the same crowd over there, right? God said, eat it. And you know what they said? We ain't eating that. But he have tender calf. While they over there sucking on spinach powder, he's over here with a medium rare. Fresh Angus. So it don't say Angus. It says it somewhere in there, I'm sure. Or they wouldn't use that word so much in the grocery store. They had to get that from somewhere, right? What I see is tremendous news here. God shows up to visit. And looking at God visit, we see the pattern. What's the pattern? Master, Lord, servant to the master. And he goes with all that, and we see the pattern show up. And then in verse 9, he says this, and they said unto him, watch this right here, where is Sarah thy wife? Not Sarai, Sarah. He said, where is Sarah thy wife? He said, behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. How many times has God said that already? A bunch, right? Thy seed, thy seed. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. That means she could not have children physically. Okay? Therefore Sarah laughed within herself. Now here's the thing. She laughed. And it says, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? You remember that thing over there in 1 Peter where it says Sarah called Abraham Lord? She's kind of smart with it over here, ain't she? After my Lord being also, you know. Verse 13, and the Lord said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh? Saying, shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? And here's the verse you need right here, the sentence, the question. Is anything too hard for the Lord? See, we saw the plan and the way the thing proceeded. Now we see the preaching. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Some of you have been in a real mess in your life. You know what God did? He got you out of it. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Hey, listen, you might have been in a place you thought you'd never be able to do what you used to do, and God brought you right back out of that thing. Is anything too hard for the Lord? If God lets something come on you that can't be taken away by a surgery, pills, time, or weight loss. Is anything too hard for the Lord? No, nothing's too hard for him. Listen to this. This ain't even got that far yet. I will be with thee always. Yea, though I walk with thee through the valley of the shadow of death. You want to learn something about sickness and problems? Go watch the life of David. The guy that wrote Through the Valley of the Shadow of Death walked around for several years with the king trying to throw a javelin and pin him to the wall. So how come he is like that? Jealousy. Surely preacher Saul run his thousands, but David's running his 10,000s. What did he try to do? Nothing. Instead, we find that is anything too hard for the Lord? No, it wasn't too hard for the Lord. You go read the account of David slaying that Goliath, that giant Goliath. Does anybody know where he's from? Gath. When David gets in trouble over there and Saul tries to kill him the second, third, fourth, fifth time, he finally goes and lives in that place. You know why they let him live there? He took down the biggest guy in town. Is anything too hard for the Lord? You ever thought you might sleep in Philistia tonight and sleep in the town of Gath, the place where you conquered your biggest foe? He said, is anything too hard for the Lord? Watch this. At the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. And then, we got in the Bible, we got John the Baptist, right? Here's Sarah the Baptist. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laugh not, for she was afraid. God called her on it. And here's what he said. Nay, but thou didst laugh. Now imagine this. You tried to help God out just 2 previous chapters ago, which is about 20 years. Now you're 20 years older than that, and God's still saying the same thing. Sarah's going to have a child. And you've been making fun of that behind God's back. But when God shows up to visit, what does he do? He shows up and says, nay, but thou didst laugh. Is anything too hard for the Lord? She hadn't been through childbirth, if I'm not mistaken, right? How old was you when you had Nate? How old was you? 20? How was Brad when he had Evie? I mean, come on. You looked at him, so 20, 25? 22? Mary, how was you when you had your first? 18? 24? Lisa, was we 25? 24? Gosh, I don't remember. But we was early 20s. Early 20s. Who? 22? 22? So we got a general consensus here. I have a quick census. How were you when you had your oldest? Yeah. 24. So everybody was not yet 25. That's good childbearing age, according to the statistics from the health department, ain't it? Y'all don't go to the health department and ask for statistics, you should. But listen to this. She is 90 years old. What's the oldest you had your last one? 25? How old were you, Lisa? You was 36 when we had Jenna. And that was rough. That's rougher than the first one. They called over that intercom and said they had some kind of code, something in there where we was at. We didn't know it. And Barbara was sitting outside in the weight room, and she told me later, she said, I thought they was calling in for baby. They wasn't calling for the baby, they was calling for mama. So where was you at? Had my back turned to her, looking at the new baby like you would have been. Because they distracted me and said, come over here a second. And I didn't know why they done that thing. I thought, well, they want to show me this baby. How sweet of them. They didn't want me to see what they're doing behind me. They figured that'd distract me. It did. Isn't that something? 36. How about 90? Any volunteers? The closest one done said no. So there's no way. But here's what God said. I will. I will. And he said, when I return and visit, it's going to be because there's going to be a birthing going on. You don't see it wrote in there, but he said, I will come to her in a time of life when she shall do what? Have a child. You know how she got through and didn't die? God showed up to visit. I see that thing there. Nay, but thou didst laugh. Ain't it funny how we see when God confronts her with that thing, she lied to God's face. And you think it's bad when people lie to a cop or lie to a judge. She lied right to God's face. God shows up with two men with him. We find out by context those men are fixing to go down there and take out Sodom and Gomorrah. They're angels. And we look at that, and what's funny is all three of them ask where Sarah thy wife is. It's like they had some kind of insight what's fixing to happen. Everybody's asking about Sarah. But then God says, nay, but thou didst laugh. There wasn't an angel carrying that message. That come from God Almighty. Now notice this thing. We see tremendous news because as you begin to look down, verse 16, it turns to tragedy. It says, and the men rose up from thence. There's our two guys. And looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, now watch this. He started off as master and Lord, but look at this. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. Now he's went from master to friend. And he says this, verse 19, for I know him that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken of him. And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is coming to me, and if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence and went towards Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. So God says their sin is very grievous, and it's come up before me. I read years ago, and I've heard several preachers say it since, but the original source that said this was in early 70s when Billy Graham said this, that if God does not destroy America, he's going to owe Sodom and Gomorrah an apology. The one thing that he didn't know then, and we don't see it now, is that this ain't as bad as it's going to get. My daddy's church is organizing some kind of thing where they're going to go over to that Spartanburg library over there and going to protest that outfit that's showing up there. You know, they like Catholic popes. They a bunch of men dressed up like women with a woman's dress on. And they're going over there to read to children. What people don't realize is all they want you to do is see and hear them. They're not going to do nothing bad. You know what they're doing? They're desensitizing those children to transvestites. That's what they're doing. Now, can I tell you what transvestite means? Pervert, sex pervert. They're trying to get your kids desensitized to that stuff so they can introduce it to them as they get older into puberty. That's what they're doing. And when we look at something like that, it's wicked, it's ungodly, but that's still not what God got them for. Look over to Ezekiel chapter 16. Hold your place here. God said their sin is very grievous. He didn't say the sin of Sodom is very grievous. He said their sin. You ever wondered why God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah? We'll say it was because of Sodomites. It may be. That's part of it. That ain't the only part. In Ezekiel chapter 16. Ezekiel 16, verse 47 says, yet hast thou not walked after their ways, nor done after their abominations, but as if that were, it says, a very little thing, thou wast corrupted more than they in all thy ways. He said, y'all didn't have sex perverts in the pulpit. Y'all didn't do ungodly, abominable marriage. He said, but thou was corrupted. Verse 48 is, I live, saith the Lord God, Sodom thy sister hath not done, she nor her daughters, as thou hast done, thou and thy daughters. Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. Now, God's going to give you an outline here in this verse exactly what the problem was. Number one, pride. Pride. I like having things that have our church stuff on it. I like having name tags and everything else. I like that. I like our logo. I love that thing. We had some car tags made when before we all wrecked all of our cars. We had a car tag on Victory Baptist Church on front of it. I guess that's what happened to them. I don't know. But I see these people have bumper stickers on the back of their car. Follow me to First Baptist, a church you can be proud of. I was in a town I was in a while back, Brother Fain. I thought, man, they're proud of their church. Number one, pride. Not sodomy, not incest, not reckless endangerment, not speeding, pride. Pride. Then he says there, listen to this, fullness of bread. God said their pride, they got gay pride marches, now they're going to have heterosexual pride marches. They should call them normal pride marches, amen. Perverts and normal, that's the way God looks at it, but they're both prideful. He said, then fullness of bread. Fullness of bread. Wonder what that's got to do with anything. Do you know when you got a fullness of food, you never pray for it? Back in the Half Pints days on Little House on the Prairie, you know what they had for Walmart? Do y'all know? They had one general store in town, usually, in every one of them western towns out there. If you ever go for a tour and they have one of them out there, Brother Brian, you've been out there, they'll have a general store in the middle of town. And listen, it's a geographical oddity, that store is. Whether you're ordering from China, Canada, or the next state over, it takes 6 weeks to get there. Geographical oddity. So that's all you got right there. But they got more than that now. So what do they got now? They throw away more bread out of the stores in town than they do give it to people and that buy it. And the stuff we throw away in a year could feed 2 other countries. And yet we're feeding all the countries with stuff that's surplus here and then throwing away all that. So we got them first 2 down. We got pride and we got fullness of bread. And the third one down there, he says this, an abundance of idleness. Abundance of idleness. So what's that? Listen, let me translate that for you into modern day. You ready for this? Do you know why we want to get people in here legally in this country instead of illegally? Because we got 300,000 jobs that we can't fill right now because we ain't got enough in the population to fill them. That's everybody, birth to the graveyard. Everybody's alive right now. We still got 300,000 more jobs. But see, most of these crowd over here is retired, and this crowd can't come to work yet. 300,000 jobs. We ain't got a job problem in America. What's our problem? Abundance of idleness. There was a man as a photographer. He's got this thing, and he posed different people for it in different ways. And in every picture, the first picture he'd take was them with their cell phones in their hands. The second picture, he had just removed the cell phones. They have the same expression on their face with everything. And he said, without those cell phones in these hands, it looks like this crowd's the saddest crowd in all the world. It was Americans in every picture. Showed a man and woman that was laid in bed at night with their backs to each other, and they looked depressed. But then you saw the next picture with the phone here, it was just looking at something. But you take that out of the picture, we're just all a bunch of lonely, depressed people. People all around us, and we're trying to get in touch with California, place you ought to be, you know. We got an abundance of idleness. You know what people do on jobs now? You know, it's funny what they do now. And when they turn around and go get your order at McDonald's, notice they got their cell phone with them. I thought they wasn't allowed to look at them things. I can imagine on some of the jobs I've been in my life, what they said, take that to the car and don't bring it back. They let you play with your phone at work? I don't think so, do they? It's odd. It is just odd how people can do what they want to at work and nobody said they're idle at the job. Now watch this. He said abundance of idleness was in her and her daughters. Neither, watch this, neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. What'd they do? They said, well, listen, you folks is poor, we're going to give you welfare and food stamps and a check. And they said, really? But you got to vote Democrat. If you ever vote Republican, we're going to take all that away. You don't believe listen, you think I'm kidding, right? Most people believe what I just told you that's on that. because somebody told them they had to do that. Isn't that just the thing? Hey, they think if they vote Republican, they're going to lose all that. You ain't going to lose all that. That's the same crowd, honey. They're the same. You don't have a conservative makeover going up there. You got a conservative takeover going on. And in 6 to 8 more years, you have a liberal takeover. It just keeps flopping back and forth. Benefits don't cease, do they? Idleness of bread, all abundance of idleness. What are they doing? They're giving people fish, not teaching them how to fish. The average crowd in this town today that don't work, you know what you do with them? If you want to get their nerves tore up, hide their welfare check in their boots, their work boots. Scare them to death. They won't be able to find it. It says, verse 50, and they were haughty. They were haughty. They strut their stuff and didn't have nothing, but they strutted it anyway. They kept saying to everybody, they ain't nobody like us. You know what the downfall of a church is? Always same time. I've watched it over and over. Downfall of church, downfall of preachers. They don't nobody hold the banner of the Lord up like us. Yeah, see, here's the problem. That's the first step towards destruction. It says there in that verse, they were haughty and, watch this, committed abomination before me. When you study your Bible, those of you that study the Bible and look for the things of God and look why things are the way they are, you would have to admit that in Romans chapter 14, God says the magistrates of God. Somehow or another, God uses that magistrate. The king's heart's in the hand of the Lord. The magistrates wave God. And what do they want that magistrate to do? They want to commit abomination right up there in his offices, and 2 men come in and marry him. That's committing abomination before the Lord thy God. That's legal now. They've already done all this. Now watch this. That last part of that verse. Therefore, I took them away as I saw good. See that? Therefore, I took them away as I saw good. God said, if I find 10 there, I'll not destroy the place. Did he find 10? Read Genesis 19, see if he found 10. He didn't find 10. But he didn't call them good. He said, therefore, I will take them away as I saw good. I wonder if that's referring to a pre-tribulation rapture, kind of a prophetic towards statement like there. And the whole thing in Genesis chapter 18 shows that God's going to pull us out of here before the real deal hits. How about that? Now, he said he's going to do all that because they committed abomination, he said, before me. So how do you know they committed abomination? Because they got sodomite churches now. I'm saying this while I can. Eventually it's going to be hate speech, so you better take it in while you can. Unless y'all plan on coming down to county and I preach to you through the bars. So we started out this country that way, and it'll end that way too. Baptist preachers in jail for preaching, not taking the license. You say they wouldn't make you take a license? Any of you. Go street preach on Gaffney Sunday anywhere in city limits. Tell me how quick the law comes out and asks you for a permit. That's a constitutional right to be able to preach on the streets of America, and they won't let you do it here. Now, if you ask them, here's what they're going to tell you. Well, now, brother, we just do that to keep the crazy cults down. You are a lie. There's more cults, churches in the city limits than there are in the county. How'd that happen? Thought you wasn't giving no permits out. But yet here we are. Oh, you got to have a permit. Do I got to have a permit to preach to a bunch of people the cops are trying to get straight and won't get straight? Listen, every time we've ever done it on Sunday afternoon, what happens? There's always somebody in there, brother. There's always been somebody show up mad. And I asked them when they show up, are you saved? Well, yeah, but are you saved? Yes, sir. We're trying to get others saved. Why don't you go along and let us keep doing this? One man said, listen, Whitney's daddy, he done something. The guy swore he pointed the Bible at him or something. I just don't know how you preach without doing it myself. You're on a street corner, you don't have all this. You got to say, thus saith the Lord, you know. He said, well, y'all need to build a barbecue pit for the youth. I said, I'll tell you what. You go get started on that, and we'll keep doing this till you get done, then you call us and let us know. And he looked at me, he went, yeah, go ahead. I said, we'll do this and you do that. We'll be a team. You get that crowd, we'll get this crowd. Is that right? You know what he said? Well, I guess I could, but he ain't called yet. That's only been 12 years. I'm waiting on my call for the barbecue. But we weren't out there trying to reach the youth. We was out there trying to reach everybody. They've committed abomination before me. What they say, the old elderly, go ahead and die. Euthanize them. Take them away. Be gone with you. It's the youth's day. Well, listen, God said they've committed abomination for me, therefore I took them away. Now we go back to Genesis 18. God and Abraham are talking. We got their conversation. He's delivered him some tragic news here. And God's telling him, so look, here's my announcement. I'm going to do this. And then he tells Abraham, verse 23, and Abraham drew near and said, now Abraham's going to try to play a game with God here. Wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy it and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That's a good question, because from what I understand, the population of Sodom would have been between at least 10 and 20,000 people. He said, if you find 50, Lord, find 50. Now you're talking to Abraham, talking to God. Sodom's right over here. Now watch this. Nope, I can't find 50. That quick. Next verse. That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee, shall not the judge of all the earth do right? Well, you talking about skating on thin ice. Don't ask God that question. And the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous in the city, then I will spare all that place for their sakes. Nope, didn't find them. Verse 27, and Abraham answered and said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Peradventure there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city for the lack of 5? And he said, if I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. And he spake unto him yet again, said, peradventure there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for 40's sake. And he said unto him, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall be 30 be found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, behold, now, if I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, peradventure there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. And he said, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. Now listen to this. 10 people. 10 people. Now Abraham knew that Lot was very worldly. When he chose the plains of Sodom, when he went and moved down there, we find King Saul in the book of 1 Samuel, and then I think David in 2 Samuel would be sitting in the gate at some point. Lot sat in the gate. He was obviously either the mayor of the place or one of the top officials there, to be where he was at with that, by that terminology. Lot's wife, 2 daughters at home, 2 daughters that's married, 2 sons-in-laws. Surely worldly Lot would have won at least 1, and maybe his wife 1. That made up 10. Lord, will thou destroy it for 10? Lot never won nobody. Never won nobody. Lot's wife dies leaving there looking back. 2 daughters go with him. 2 daughters, 2 sons-in-laws left. Not 10 people. 4. And one of them dies just right outside the city. God said, I won't destroy it for 10's sake. See, God watches what we do. And either you're an Abraham Christian or a Lot Christian. You're either suffering like Lot or you're suffering like Job. But you're going to suffer. Everybody suffers. We try to program that out. We try to take air-conditioned hell nowadays. I heard a story this preacher told, and they had 2 preachers. It was Brother Carter told this. Brother Steve gave me the thing today. He said that they went in there to preach his funeral, and this woman tells Brother Carter, I do not want to hear hell mentioned in this church out of you. He said, no problem. No problem. He gets up there and preaches, does his part. He sits down, and Brother Danny Cannon stands up and says, y'all are all going to hell. After the service, she said, I forgot to tell him. He said, I see that. He said, you'd be better off telling him and not telling me, but, it worked out there. That's the kind of people they liked in Sodom. Don't preach judgment to us. Don't be waving hell in our face. We've already got our Christian insurance. We don't want to hear about it no more. It makes us sad. You know what makes them sad? Because Lot didn't win nobody in Sodom. Never won a soul. When he did try to go talk to his daughters and sons-in-laws outside the home, they mocked at him when he done. They mocked the man to his face. Could you imagine living like that? You're born again, child of God, and your testimony is so bad when you go try to tell somebody, look, the Lord really is coming. They laugh at you till you leave. Isn't that sad? No testimony whatsoever. Lot stayed down there for however long, and the whole time he was there, everybody knew him because he was elected to a place, which means he had good 3/4 of them. It was actually for him. They thought he was a good man even, probably. You don't vote for bad people, do you? You vote for somebody who thinks good for the office. But he had no testimony whatsoever. He squandered all that away when he said, I'll take that right there. Listen, I see here in verse 33, and the Lord went his way as soon as he had left communion with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. They started off, Master and Lord. Lord said, you're my friend, I'm going to share this with you. And later we're going to be brethren, but right now we got a very big problem. Problem is we can't find 10 people saved. When people come to me and tell me, there used to be this lady, she'd always come to me and she'd always say, now I got some people for you to visit. No matter where she saw me at. And she'd always do it like this. I got some people for you to visit. Don't worry, she didn't go to church here. Half of you's wondering, is he talking about me? But she'd say that stuff. Walmart, Pop's Corner, whatever H&H is called now, I don't know. But the one beside the old bowling alley there. I got some people who need to visit. Winn-Dixie, I got some people who need to visit. And I finally asked her one day, because I tried to visit a couple of them people, and they wouldn't come to the door for me. So I went back and asked her, I said, let me ask you a question. I said, how many of them people have you visited? She said, I can't do that. I said, why can't you? She said, I just don't know how to tell them to get saved. I said, could it be that you're not saved? Could that be it? Could that be the problem, that you're not saved? That's why you can't tell them how to get saved, because you don't know how to get saved, because you don't know how to be saved. She said, I've been in church all my life. I said, that wasn't a question. 10 people. 10 people. Well, couldn't you have told at least one? Couldn't you have handed them a gospel tract? Couldn't you have read that gospel tract and say, hey, that happened to me. I know what it is, and I get it. And you wouldn't have told them about it? Not even 10. What if God were to stroll down the aisles of this church and pick any one of you out at random and say, I'm destroying the place you live tonight and everybody in it. It's over. I've had enough. Well, why are you doing that, Lord? Well, I'll tell you in about 26 more books, but right now the plan is destruction. The explanation's later. Okay, Lord, but what if you find 50 up there in Gaffney? Just 50. There's 12,000 there. That's 5 times what Sodom had. 12,000 people. What if we just have the thing, 10 people out of that? Have you led any of them people to the Lord? Have you told any of them? We're living in a day and age where people, everybody's saved in the South, and the rest of the world's a heathen. But we won't tell them here how to get saved, and the joke's on us, we the heathen. So how you know we the heathen? I hear the drums beating all the time. It's kind of like a train in the middle of the night. It comes by the house, so I won't pay no attention to it. One of y'all visits, man, is that a train going by? After a while, it just blends in the background. Everybody says, well, are you saved? Well, I'm saved. Why don't you go to church? Well, they hurt my feelings over there. Why don't you find another one? We got 78 to choose from. 78, similar to this one. Now, they may not be exactly like, but there's 78 other ones. Listen, 10 people. 10 people. I wonder when we get to heaven and we look back and God says, you know, I sent that thing to you about the 10 people. Did you ever even go try after that? Do I have to destroy everything around you and pull you out of it as a brand plucked by fire and call you a righteous person? You live like they did and you wouldn't tell them. Here's the joke. The joke's not on God. The joke's on us. Psalm 2 said he'll have people, he'll be laughing at them. It's in derision. You know why? He knows what's coming next. You know what's coming next? There's a place coming in which all them people, all 12,300 and whatever it was on that sign up there, that all of them are going to stand before God, and he's going to say, you're lost, you're going to like, so nobody ever told me. Well, God be able to call you up to the witness stand and said, my servant told him. Didn't you, servant? Didn't you, friend? Didn't you, brother? Now you know why there's tears in heaven in the next chapter. Because some people will not get it through their heads. You need to tell people about Jesus. You may not be the preacher. You may not have a message where you prayed one in, but surely you can hand them a gospel tract. Surely you can tell them how you got saved. So I get nervous. You don't get that nervous up there when you asking, hey, man, will you unlock the dressing room for me? I want to try on these clothes. You talk perfect strangers in. Hey, shoe lady, come over here and buy these 10 pair of shoes. Hey, guy with the measuring tape, I need to buy this new suit. Come here and measure me. I'd be with you. No, you come now. You get bold with them. You don't mind talking to that car dealer. Nobody's probably talking to these people. But to talk to somebody telling you, say, well, I just can't do that. You can do everything else. I can't keep the plan of salvation memorized. Yeah, I know that's real hard to do. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Have you heard the gospel of Jesus Christ? Where'd you find that at? Right there. You thought the pictures were pretty. You were sitting there looking at that. Bless your heart. Listen, you start back here, you can tell them how to get saved. So won't they know I'm using notes? I'm using notes right now. Truth's truth, no matter how you get across. If you memorize it, that's even better. But listen, you must believe that Jesus died for your sins. Do you believe Jesus died for your sins? Now listen to me. You got all that to tell them right there. And listen, in case you get one on the line, what do I do now? Them saves right there. How about that? It's already done. The next time you go to a restaurant, instead of acting a fool, listen, get your little bill out and remember Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. He that soweth the flesh shall reap corruption. He that soweth the spirit shall reap life everlasting. How's that thing start off again? Does it say God is not mocked? Yeah, that part. Get your little bill out, find what the total is, get your little iPhone out, multiply that thing times 0.20. So what's that? 20%. 20%? I won't get them $5. That's why right now you keep reaping the stuff you reaping. Me and my wife made up a few years ago about we was just going to start giving 20% every time. Now, sometimes my patience does get tried. I'll be honest with you. But I have to think, is that lady having a bad day today? You ever have bad days? I have bad days. I have days where I have literally pulled my hair out, and I'm not talking about tonight either. But yet something happens, and I say, you know what, I'm gonna do right. If the judge of all earth to do right, he's my model, I'll do right. And 99 times out of 100, you know what I get? Good service. I've been so into that principle. We'll go in places. I said, we already got one. Here, take another one. Give this to you. Give this to your children. We got invited to a baby shower. So you gonna go? Of course I'm gonna go. I usually don't get invited to these things. Every one of you women wouldn't let me come to yours. They said we can come to that one. So they just don't know no better. Who cares? I'm gonna go. Free food, cake, and everything. Now I found out why y'all don't want us to go. Right, brother? That's why they don't want us to go. That free food and cake, they don't want us to go to that thing. But whatever you sow to, you're going to reap of. I've had 2 men in this church tell me, as long as your hands are full, God cannot fill your hands. So I learned a principle, 20%. Well, you only tithe 10%. No, I tithe more than that, but that's beside the point. You give so God can give it to you to give again. It works out pretty good. Now, I'm saying all this, the next place I stop at, they'll probably pour tea down my back and throw ice in my face. That's fine. They're getting 20% and then we're going. I'm going to assume they had a real bad day. Back years ago, when Debbie, my sister-in-law, used to work at Quincy's, me and my wife was out one day with somebody, and they said, let's go to Quincy's and eat. And I looked at her, I said, let's go to Hardee's. So why would you do that? Because I was with Quincy's with them once before. Lord God have mercy. I've never heard somebody complain so much in one place I haven't all year of things that they didn't like. They walked in the door, the waiter went, I thought, Lord, they're going to spit in that food short of the world. There used to be this person I know, they'd pull up at the McDonald's drive-thru when I worked there. They'd shoot a look at me and look in that bag, and they'd stop, take out each piece, look at each thing, make sure it's right. Hold up the whole line. Every time I look, is it right? It's right. It's all right. Pull off. You sow to that, you get reaping to that. You complain all the time, all your friends will be complainers. You run around fleshly people and you honor them all the time. That's what kind of honor you're going to get back. And they're going to call you your favorite name. It's something like jerk, but I can't say it here. That's what they do. You sow to that thing, you reap of it. You sow that flesh, you reap that thing. But he said, if you sow the Spirit, you reap life everlasting. Two guys were mentioned in this conversation back here. One of them wasn't mentioned. The other one was Abraham. Abraham's dealing with God again. Lord, 50, 45, 40. Like a reverse auction. 30. Can I hear 30 now? 20. How about 10? The other guy was Lot. Abraham wasn't worried about Sodom. He was worried about Lot. See, you got a Lot. Somebody you know's Lot. Lord, if you're going to wipe that whole outfit out, will you at least help my nephew? When this all comes to pass, and it'll come to pass, the question is, when God shows up to visit, who's he going to be visiting? Because, see, the same God that created this world and gave license to the Word of God and said, I will speak only by that, is the same God that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Same God said to be a new heaven and new earth because the former things are passed away. It's going to be that God does away with them. When somebody gets to talking this high-educated nonsense and says, well, now in the Greek, he's not exactly destroying the planet, he's just making it over. No, it ain't a makeover. It's a takeover. God's going to move that out of the way and take this new in its place, and it's going to take over where the other one used to be. New heaven, new earth. God's going to make them new. Why is that? Because he couldn't find 10 righteous here. Let's stand with every head bowed, every eye closed.